Hi, gang. You're listening to Burlesque Unleashed. My name is Dana Dare.
And I'm Isla Storm, and here we dive into the latest dilemmas, deliberations, and dramas in burlesque.
And you said it right this
I
time.
did say it right
Uh,
this time.
we chat about different topics every month, although it's kind of turning into twice a month, so we probably need to look at that. But we always share our views. As always, these are our views, so it is not fact, it is just opinion.
Quite take it with a pinch or a very large grain of salt, whatever you like. And today's very exciting because we have a very special guest with us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
No, honestly, no. I am Holly. I am the they behind 21st Century Burlesque, and I die a little inside whenever I have to talk about myself.
Same time. So I
So,
think our first question is very similar to what we asked around
mhm,
competitions. Obviously, now we're talking about selection panels,
yeah.
adjudication, however you want to
Mm.
whatever you want to call it. So walk us through what actually happens once the submissions close. Like, what does the panel experience look like in your experience?
Yeah, and again, it does vary somewhat, but I would say when it comes to adjudication, it tends to be a bit more consistent. So you'll get approached to do it. You'll get asked to do it in some way. Depending on who it is doing the asking, it might be a quick DM like, "Oh, you're up for doing this," or it might be a more formal. We would like it if you would consider. And then usually there's some like breakdown of, we're looking to start doing selections at this time and this time. We're going to give you, so you get a bit of um, information about that. But then
Mhm.
it tends to get, quite strict. If you're going to do it, you really are kind of committed. Like, I won't always say yes if I don't have a really good block of time coming up, because
Mm,
and it varies. Sometimes I'm told in advance, okay, we've got quite a few like on the jury this year, so you're probably going to be given 50 to look at,
Mhm.
and then we might come back to you with some other stuff. Other times, and again, some of them I can't kind of specify which, but there are some when I have to review everything. Like, I might have 200, 250, videos. Or then if there's like different competition evenings, or sometimes, if there's different categories or that kind of thing, you're
Mhm.
then going to have to kind of, review all of the submissions for all of those kind of separately. Sometimes people will kind of do a bit of a short list in advance. Sometimes they just throw everything at you guys and just hope you're going to kind of work it out, and then they'll look at they'll kind of do a cutoff of like, right, anything that scores above this from all the collective opinions, then we'll work out what we're going to place and what we want. And
mhm,
I think, um, but sometimes you are just given your chunk that you're responsible for, and that's it. It also varies. Like I say, sometimes there's the additional thing of, okay, there's a competition on this given night, but we're also trying to work out who we want to cast in other nights. Maybe they've got like a, I don't know. Oh, we're having like a super glam, opulent, like classic night on this
Mhm.
night. And we've got this other one in a dive bar where it's all going to be like leather and fucking grease and, whatever. Then we just want one night where it's just batshit weird stuff. And then we want like the fancy gala, and then we got the competition. So if you can kind of give us, some indication of where you think things should go,
yeah.
um, sometimes there is some of that. Or they'll say, this festival is really on this theme. We haven't done any. This is the thing, sometimes they haven't necessarily made it clear to people that a lot of the times now, I think they do give people a criteria before they submit, but I
Mhm.
think sometimes they do have a certain theme or aesthetic or standard in mind. And you can kind of tell when you're looking at what's in front of you whether that's kind of been clear or at least abided by or not. So if I'm just scoring people for the purposes of a competition, then you can apply the kind of standard system that I have. If I'm being asked to just select for a festival as a whole, sometimes it can be helpful. There can be times when things kind of really prescriptively fit in one place. And then you can kind of say, I'd throw that person into a competition and see what happens. Like, or
Mhm.
that seems like it doesn't fit anywhere, but that's quite a competitive act. So let's just throw it in the mix there. So again, this is rambling, but it's like it can sometimes it can be fine out, sometimes it can be very intense, sometimes you're given a kind of more fixed and manageable thing to do, and then sometimes they want like additional feedback from you. Sometimes, depending on how many they let you submit, you might be seeing the same person submit 2 or 3 different acts. And if I haven't come across one at a certain point and I come across another one later, then obviously I'm going to have to adjust things a little bit. But essentially you'll get something like, usually there's some sort of spreadsheet or they have some electronic system. It depends on kind of the level of sophistication or whatever. You'll get like the name, you'll get the name of the act. Maybe you might get a little bio to view about the person. If maybe they want to say, oh, this act is about, they say a little something. And then you get the video link, and it can literally be anything from, a private unlisted YouTube link. It can be like a Vimeo thing. Someone's uploaded it somewhere privately, whatever. And then your job is to, abide by whatever they've asked you to do. They might have said, well, we want this criteria in mind, can you score them on each of these criteria? Or can you decide on an overall score from like 1 being excellent, amazing, you have to have them, to yes, very good, do consider them, to average, to no, just don't even like bother looking at this one, which is harsh.
Yeah.
It tends to be a combination of those things, depending on the scale of the festival, depending on the number of submissions. But yeah, sometimes it is literally you have to spend about 3 solid days just viewing every single one sometimes. Wow. Yeah.
So where do we go from here? We're just like, wow. Yeah. On that note, are there common mistakes that you see people make over and over again?
I think there are things, I think there are things that do let people down. And how do I say this? Especially if you're viewing a lot of videos and you're just systematic, you've like almost like limbered up. You've got your snacks, you've got your giant TV screen, like you're ready to go. It's like, right, I'm going to sit here for the next 2-3 hours. I'm just going to, because it helps. If you take too many breaks, or if you break it up too much, you lose your baseline. You lose your of baseline. So sometimes I do just binge. And I think because you don't know where you're going to be, you don't know if a judge is going to be looking at a little chunk of them, or you're the 236th person they've looked at, or the first, or whatever. It is helpful to retain a judge's goodwill when they're making snap decisions. I think some of and it sounds obvious, but you will be surprised. Video quality. I don't really necessarily care if it's in the Orpheum or it's in the rehearsal room or whatever else, but I need to be able to see you. It needs to be high quality. It also really helps because I'm seeing more and more now portrait videos. Maybe you've got someone to, I mean, don't get me wrong, all our phones are pretty good nowadays, but you've maybe got someone to take a shot of you on stage with their phone in the audience or something. I wouldn't just say it's just a matter of the orientation being an issue. I think it can work against you because it obstructs us from getting a sense of scale, especially if I'm thinking, like say, for example, with, I know what the given venue or the given scale is going to be. If I'm trying to work out if this person is going to occupy or take up a certain space, like the kind of space that they're taking up, like the depth of the stage or whatever, you lose a lot. Sometimes on portrait, if someone's going up to the back of the stage and then they're kind of coming back again, well, I've kind of lost them for about a good sort of 10-15 seconds there if they're moving in and out of a light. Where at least with like a landscape, you more of the kind of light and everything is feeding in. You can see how they like take up space. You can take in the act and the movement as a whole rather than being zoned in on this one thing. So I really, really recommend, even if you're like, I don't like this video, I don't feel like it's in a nice enough place, I'd rather just see a clearly shot landscape video, even if it's in your local village hall, it's in your rehearsal room. I don't really mind. Broken links, like it happens a lot, and I feel for people because I know, I bet they checked it a million times. I click through and I don't have permission to view the video, or the link is dead, and then I have to, sometimes if you have the opportunity, you have to go back to them and say, look, I can't see this person, and and again, some festival people will try and resolve that, but sometimes it is tough shit. It's just tough. Oh, couldn't view this video, sorry. Like, not
It's
applicable.
understandable if you've got hundreds of applications.
Um, yeah, it kind of does depend. So, but also then if I have to kind of go through the process of trying to access a video or wait for that or whatever, you're just
It's
straining
not good
someone's kind
vibes.
of goodwill.
Yeah.
It's not,
Yeah.
because I think what's actually, no, let me add the other thing I was going to say first. Cutting and editing is really important. Again, if I've been looking at all these videos, I don't really want to sit through the finishing of applause from the previous act, someone sweeping the stage, the MC coming out to like crack a joke and then introduce you, and then like there's another 5 seconds of darkness before the music kicks in. You get where I'm coming with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really easy now with like various software and everything to do a cut of your video. Just get to it. I'm not trying to say I want you to cut out atmosphere or like scenes anywhere, but just get to it. Like I want to view it from literally when you're placed on stage and the music starts. You know. And the other thing is old videos.
Mm.
Sometimes I will view a video that is literally from like maybe even 10 years ago or 7 years ago or 4 years ago. And again, I can almost imagine people's agony like, well, I don't really have a good recent video of it. And this really is the strongest. I'll put it in. But it might create an impression that you're not considering, which is that, say you were of a certain standard, you know, we all improve, right? I would think most of us wouldn't want to still be at the standard we were at 5 years ago, 7 years
Yeah.
ago, whatever. So what you're basically saying to me is, this is where I'm at right now. I'm not going to be able to use my license to say, oh well, okay, this was back in whenever, but I'm sure it's better than that. No, I'm literally going to judge you on what I see. So if you want me to think that you're at the standard you were 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, I will judge you accordingly. So
Yeah.
again, like, put thought into this. You know, people will often, before they submit anyway, even just people I know, say, oh my gosh, which of these do you think? Do you think I should submit this video or submit that video? Do you think this is okay? And I know there must be people agonizing over all of this, but those are the kind of key immediate things. I think the thing I wanted to kind of just like end with on this point is, and again, especially for the people who aren't necessarily in it just to compete, they're in it to try
Yeah.
to get into a festival and the various other things that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
You do not know who is viewing this video at any time, and the doors, windows, whatever that they may open for you later on. Like in my case, I'm pretty constantly asked, like, you know, I'm looking for someone who does this kind of thing, or like, who do you think I should be looking at this year? You know, I need someone for, you know, for this or that. Do you know anyone who's top of your mind? Or yeah, there might be producers who, yeah, you might not win this competition, you might not get into this festival, but you might get a gig
Yeah.
in a few months' time. So sometimes it's going to be your first impression.
Yeah.
And that cannot be underestimated, because all these little things signal to me that you are a professional, that you're, or at least if you're not, you know, entirely a professional performer, that you are taking it seriously, that you're respecting your time, my time, that you're putting thought into how you're presenting yourself, that you can curate, you can edit, you know, not even just like the timing of a video, but you can edit, you know, what you present, that you can keep to the time frame required. I would say
Yeah.
for most performers nowadays, have a type 4 or a type 5. Like, even if, you know, you would usually do something longer, just have type 4 and 5 versions of them, and show that you can comply with what is asked of you. It seems like it's more subliminal, but it really does create a really distinct first impression of how organized you are, how seriously you're taking it, you know, and how professional you are. And it just shows your act in the best light too. You
Yeah.
know, that's your shot. But it's just worth remembering that I have no idea. Anyone could be seeing this. Anyone
Yeah.
could be watching this, and it could be my one shot at making an impression on them and like furthering my own opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Important.
important. Yeah. So, because, yeah, you're right. No clue who's watching this. And yeah, oh, so many things to make. My brain's like,
Because, you know, it is
no.
saturated out there. It's really saturated out there.
Yeah.
There are fewer and fewer opportunities, or at least, you know, profitable professional
Yeah.
opportunities all the time. And it's a bit scary. It sounds scary, but no, really, like, treat everything as if it is out there and could literally, you know, lead to anything. Because, you know, with
You
someone
never know.
like me, for example, there are all sorts of directions in which that could go, and you could come back to my mind at some point. So
Yeah.
total kind of sides way, kind of. Nah. Um, is there ever you sort of talked about there about you watch stuff and sometimes you give feedback on oh it belongs in this night or that night or whatever. Have you ever come across something that's like too niche for a festival? Like, does that exist?
I think rather than like niche, sometimes I would say it depends. Like I say, some festivals, like Teaser's a good example, right? Teaser Festival in New Orleans, they have a lot of showcases, literally like 10. Like
So many.
I mean, it's just all killer. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But like they have maybe 10 showcases, and in some of those, there will be more like variety acts or
Hmm.
more like burlesque adjacent stuff. But I think that's sometimes more what it is. It's more like, okay, oh, actually, this seems more like just a very straight kind of drag act. Like I'm watching someone kind of just, voguing and lip syncing a lot here, but there's not a lot of kind of like very burlesque codified content here. Or actually, well, maybe this is veering more into kind of performance art. This is a slightly more abstract thing that's going on here. And it might be, like I say, if you've got a festival that has a hugely diverse, like, lineup opportunities or whatever, that's not so much of a problem. And I would say if we stick to kind of the context of competition here, because that's kind of mainly what we're talking about, again, I think selection is really important. You've got a tight four to make an impression. Do that homework and research over what you're about to submit to. But I don't think I would necessarily, I mean, I've seen some genuinely delightfully bizarre,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
left field random stuff that where I might be like, you know what, this really isn't like something I would necessarily like select if I had a sort of strip flicks to scroll through. I might not kind of be putting that on my wish list, but what the fuck did I just watch? Like, my God.
We
Like,
had one of those moments. Yeah,
Yes,
we
we
had
did.
one of those moments on Saturday in Strasbourg, and it was the best thing I've ever watched.
yeah. So I'm like, by all means, but I think, it's just do your homework a bit. There are going to be times where it's just like, I almost have to say, actually, no, I don't think this is applicable. This is applicable, for a burlesque competition. If it really isn't, there's not enough like overlap because you know what the criteria is going to be,
Yeah.
and you know that it's just not going to like apply to that criteria.
Yeah. That's so important. Like, has that come up many times where you're like, oh my God, I love this. I absolutely love this, but it's just not right for what we're selecting for.
I think sometimes, I mean, I try to, it depends. Again, remember, it depends kind of what job I've been given to do. If I've been asked to just look, we just want you to score this. If it's literally like an out of 10 thing or it's this given criteria, unless it's just completely inapplicable and I kind of want to raise the point of like, actually, I don't think this is just kind of a completely different like art form or discipline altogether, or it's just a 15-minute long performance art thing they've sent me and this is a type 4 competition, I have more reason to raise it. But otherwise I will just try and mark things. Like if there is an absence of, striptease technique or there isn't a lot of costume, then I'll just mark it accordingly. But I will say, especially in competition, I would say that, like I say, there are kind of winning competition formulas to consider. I think you don't want to have people scratching their heads too much. I wouldn't go for your most abstract. It's difficult, right? Because I think sometimes being in my position as someone who is a performer, but is also like a professional observer, sometimes performers can get in their head a bit. And even sometimes, I'll be real with you, sometimes when I'm doing selections, I will see someone I know, a friend, like a really good friend maybe, or someone who have a really long, close, trusting relationship with. And I will sometimes think to myself, oh, why did you pick that one? That one. Because like you can't ask them because you can't tell them. You can't tell them. But you just think, gosh, why? Because I think sometimes performers will get in their own heads a little bit before or after. You see sometimes after judging things, people will be like, well, you just didn't understand. You just didn't understand like what I was trying to do there. And I'm like, oh, but there it is. If I didn't understand, in your mind anyway, because I didn't place you, whatever. If an audience can't tangibly get hold of what you're doing, and they spend most of your act trying to work out what's going on or whatever, who's the onus on there?
Are you
You
communicating
know,
effectively?
sometimes like performers, and we all do it. Like I'm a fine artist as well. We can get really like into our concepts and
Yeah.
what things mean. And at the end of the day, it is kind of irrelevant because an audience is going to assign their own meaning. They're going to get their own kind of vibes off stuff. And I just think, yeah, is it that your idea might be perfectly, you know, cerebral and intelligent and really well thought through and really compelling, but it's how you are performing that. If that's not kind of coming across, then, you know, that's something to consider. And I think sometimes performers struggle to see that. They're not always very good at turning it around and actually watching what they're doing, you know, which is sometimes where a kind of more critical perspective is important, because I'm almost like a professional audience member, if you like.
Yeah.
And that's where optics come in. It's even with the same with branding and the way performers brand themselves and market themselves and stuff. There's the intention and the desired effect and what it actually gives off about you. So
Yeah.
you know, something to consider.
No, it's important. I've definitely had, you know, those moments where you come off stage and you're like, ah, fuck that. And you know in the moment that you totally screwed it up and you're like, oh well. And then you stand at the end of the competition and you're like, I've not won and it's fine. Although
I
I
think we
think
can
you had one of
like.
those nights and then you won.
Oh yeah, I was having a bad day. I got attacked by a dog at a station. Not actually attacked. I got nearly attacked.
You'll be surprised. Like I tell you, it's not a private anecdote because I actually profiled her and I mentioned it, right? Just to make the point to people of worrying or getting in their own heads, right? When Jezebel Thunder,
Yep.
I was watching from home. I was covering it from here. Stayed up and I'm on LA time mostly anyway, but I was watching the whole thing. And so I was obviously invested, wanted to watch her performance.
Yep.
She did her performance. We all know what happens, but like just pretend we were watching her performance. And I just sent her a text like, shit, babe, like it's the best I've seen you fucking do that. Like you've got to be psyched, dude. Like you didn't put a finger there. Wow. And she goes, like, this is quintessential Jess. She goes, yeah, it was decent. I'm not mad at myself.
I think we had the same conversation. I was like, dude.
Which is really, my point is, it's that kind of cliched, you know, even the people that you think are like, so like completely at the top of their game, whatever. She was like, yeah, it was decent. I'm not mad at myself. It's as good as it kind of gets from Jess's self-evaluation. And then, of course, and there are moments like, you know, I almost in my head imagine I'm judging things as I go along anyway, because it's always just an academic exercise, right? Everything's an opportunity to practice. And it got to a moment where I realized what was coming. You just kind of suddenly think, oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah.
And there was that, it's genuine. I know, you know, sometimes you watch the end of pageants, especially the gown and glove ones, and because, oh my gosh, it's me. No, oh my God, it's me. And you kind of think, yeah, all right, calm down. But no, genuinely, there are times you could see on Jess was just like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
I was there. Like, I was lucky enough to be there this when she won. And yeah, you could see it. She was like, are you sure?
Oh no, we need to count again. But this is kind of my point. Sometimes performers in both directions aren't always, however much preparation they do, who they coach with, how much they consult on it, whatever, don't always have the most accurate sense. And even some of their advisors and consultants who've worked on it are kind of so invested in it that they're not necessarily realizing either how well something went or how something didn't quite translate in the moment. So that, it was just one of those moments of like, no, like like they say, everyone goes to the bathroom, everyone thinks, you know, kind of phoned it in or it's not going to happen, you know. I think most of the best people are that way, because otherwise I think you're blind to development. Some people can be too self-deprecating, you know, some people create labor for themselves in that direction. But you know,
we're just not always our most
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just not always our most like reliable witnesses, are we? Like you were saying about acts, even act choice and in submissions. I never used to put Thunderstruck in for any competitions because I was like, oh, it's too simple. I don't do enough tricks. Like the costume isn't.
That
There's not
might be your
enough.
MVP act though.
It is though, which I
Yeah.
know now.
So,
At the time, I was like, oh, this one's got more content, you know, or this got. And then as soon as I started putting it in for competitions and festivals, it's the one that everybody takes.
there you go.
And I,
It's probably your tight four competition kind of
yeah,
showcase act. So yeah, you've got that discernment.
yeah.
We
Yeah.
got there.
Learning. We got there in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've obviously talked about spending hours watching video, and you love it, which is fair. But how do you stave off fatigue from potentially watching like potentially similar acts and still be able to score them fairly?
Um, I don't want to get like, because sometimes people ask me this, and I'm not into the whole like neurodivergence is a superpower thing.
But in this
But
case,
I'm an autist. I'm one of those, we all have various different levels of disability, obstructions, and I don't like this whole kind of, because I find it a bit ableist or divisive, this kind of savant superpower stuff.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. But sometimes you do have certain like cognitive ways of doing things, and it definitely helps with the top 50 too. Like, I'm a pattern detector. I'm a person who can abide by systems and get extremely hyper focused, and apply I would say I'm a kind of flexible, quite fluid person for the most part, but I can be very pragmatic and very systematic and hyper focused, which is why sometimes I will literally get comfortable. Like, my partner goes to bed, the cats are sorted out, I just get my snacks and like, okay, like this is it, and I will just go at it. It's the same with the top 50. As soon as the top 50 closes, I will just work on that spreadsheet overnight until it's done. So what I'm trying to say is that I can't speak for everyone else, but I do tend to get into that kind of pattern detection baseline systematic mode. You almost get to a point where you're past fatigue when you've consumed just like an infinite amount of stuff. You just kind of break past that. I mean, it is something like, just an additional bit of advice, it is good to try and avoid being lost in the middle when it comes to selection. Like, there are a lot of people who end up in the like sixes, sevens, even eights, but I think the sixes and sevens kind of area, because it does start to get a bit amalgamous. There are a lot of kind of formulaic things that you might see. It just might be with a slightly different costume or a different color or a different song or whatever. But again, I just try and, of course there's a human part of you that's like, oh, okay, great, another one of these, another one to this song, and then okay. But then I try and challenge myself to say, well, what's the point of difference here? Okay, I'm going to give it this baseline, but like, let's look for a kind of point of difference here. Or e.g., like, if I've got two, gown and glovers who are kind of, in terms of the content of their routine, if you like, I'm pretty much going to see the kind of same kind of things. Then I'll look for kind of some like differentiating factor. And sometimes even, I will pull into that global reference of, okay, actually, how derivative is this? Like, what are the point of references here? Has this person tried to do something at least a little bit more original in some element? Or is this something that is just very derivative that isn't, I think, going to contribute, so much in this case? But yeah, for the most part, I think once I lock in on the system and the baseline, you just kind of try to apply that in quite a clinical way, which is why genuinely I somehow manage to, even when I'm like, it's one of my best friends, or it's someone I've just known a really long time, or it's someone I've coached at some point, or whatever, you just kind of shut that out. You're literally looking at what's in front of you. And yeah, there are going to be times where I'm like, why did you choose that one and not that one? Why have you submitted that video, girl? There are obviously times when I'm like, God, that's a shame, because I think if you'd done the other one, or sometimes they'll have submitted two and I'll just, be able to kind of notch up one higher than the other. But you do just kind of have to eliminate all of that. And it just comes down to discipline and repetition,
Mm.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? Because the longer you've been about as well, I guess, the more familiar names you'll keep seeing and the more you might know someone. Yes, there's lots of new people coming in, but it must be hard to, I guess, because you've got that system that helps you to kind of take yourself out of it a little bit of like
Yeah, I
knowing a
think
person
so.
or
I think
having an
so.
expectation.
Yeah, and I think obviously it is helpful. And again, I don't, a lot of people would agree we don't have enough of this differentiation in the scene, but I think it can be really helpful if things are pitched as this is more of a newcomer competition,
Mm.
Yeah.
or like this is a best of the best big gun competition. And don't get me wrong, some people are overtly invited to apply to compete. Like, of course, there are times when people arranging things do want to make sure they have a certain caliber. Of course, people behind the scenes arrange. It doesn't mean they're getting it, but they're because it's still going to come through me and other
Yeah.
people. But
Yeah.
there are definitely, I think, some like levels of curation, or you know. So I think it does help. It does help if these things are made clearer. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is a shame sometimes when I see such a diverse range, that some people just aren't going to kind of stand a chance against some of the people at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
um Places like bigger scale things like BHOF's a really good example, right? I think that is immediately easy for people to apply to, right? Because it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to apply. I've never even performed there, so I mean, yeah, obviously there could be an amazing person who's done really well who's never just bothered to apply to BHOF before it ends up in debut. But for the most part, it's a bit more like differentiated. If you're going to submit for Exotic World, kind of like where you need to kind of be at for that.
Yeah.
Whereas debut, you might kind of, be more in your own depth there. But yeah, I think the clearer people can make it, the better, really. But I
That's
think sometimes
Yeah.
people don't want to do that because they want to get as many applications
yeah.
as possible. You can tell when people haven't got enough or the ones they want because they'll keep saying applications
We're
still. Oh, we're
extending.
doing. So, but I don't think that's in anyone's interest. It's not in your
No.
interest. It's not in my interest. I think it's okay to be a bit prescriptive.
Yeah.
I
Upsets
think
me
it
greatly when
helps.
things keep getting delayed.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like they always say, we always say when people are asking us about applying to festivals, and other people have said it online, like go and have a look and see what that festival has had previously. Like if they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be prescriptive about what they want, go and have a look. Are
Homework
they
is
only,
essential.
yeah, are they only
Yeah.
booking classic? Are they only booking weird stuff? Are they only booking
Yeah.
like a certain caliber of performer?
Mm-hmm.
Do they maybe like more contemporary stuff? Like you do have to do that legwork if it's not written there in front of you. You have to do that legwork. Else you're not just wasting your time and money, but like adjudicators' time and stuff as
Yeah, and
well.
I think it is kind of obvious when you're spamming. It's kind of obvious when someone has put more thought into it. And I know there is
Hmm.
this like eagerness to like get into festival and get into anything possible that I can get into, but some things are just simply not like I'm an acrylic painter, right? I'm not gonna just kind of elbow my way into some sort of illustration or print, kind of thing. Or when I know that all they do is have galleries full of like horses and hunting scenes and dogs or whatever. Like, why would I even like bother with that? It's just additional kind of labor and anticipation for me
Mm-hmm.
as well. I really think it is helpful to know what your lane is and do that homework. And I know for some more kind of niche people, that's going to feel like a harder task. You're going to feel like there isn't as much available to you. But like I said, I think festivals on the whole are getting a bit more open-minded and starting to
Yeah.
Hmm.
theme their different nights, which is great, especially for people who don't actually really want to compete. They just feel like that's the only option available.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, curate, curate, curate.
I
we
think
love
that
that.
feeds in interestingly to something we were talking about, Dinah, quite a lot recently about the differences in, yeah, how much curation there is versus we've been speaking to some American friends who said that a lot of American festivals or North American festivals, because Canada too, it might be purely points based with not much curation and purely the
Yeah.
best acts get in. So, like you say, if they're not super clear about the levels,
Yeah, I would say that is the standard. I would say that I might be given criteria to score against individually, or I might just be asked, given the criteria we've given you and the overall skill level and everything, and if they've abided by certain rules, because if they've broken certain rules or whatever, then you just, rule them out.
Yeah.
Please give a score of, between like 1 to 10, and then they will take it upon themselves to decide
Right.
what they do with people, who goes in the competition, who goes maybe somewhere else that they can put them. It's kind of largely then up to them. It does really vary, but I'd say for the most part, that's what you should expect to happen, is that I'm going to be given stuff to look at. I'm going to have a criteria. I'm going to be asked to score it. And then it's kind of out of my hands. I've kind of done my job.
Yeah.
At that point.
No, that's fine.
Where are we? So we are an unregulated industry. We've discussed this. People can come in from wherever entry point they like. Do you think that needs to change? And why? Kind of what could that look like? Would that take away its individuality? Small question.
Okay. Again, again, I'll try and cover this because I do get asked this in different ways sometimes. I think, as you say, right, and I'll preface this by saying that I think regulation in some form is likely only going to be achievable at like local, national levels, in any like practical way. But I also think that in many ways we're just too, especially at the moment, dysregulated for regulation. And I think it's helpful, not gatekeeping or exclusionary, to be more honest about these kinds of modes of dysregulation. There tend to be two, I've noticed over time, still two kind of key routes into burlesque as an art form, right? You've got the people who, like myself or others or whatever, went through kind of conventional training as a performer, maybe in a general sense, or in then into some specialism or whatever, and came into it with that constantly enforced sense of critique, self-evaluation. Literally from day one, I'm like 10 years old and they're asking the 10-year-old next to me to tell me what I did wrong. Or they're you're constantly having to self-evaluate. You're being corrected literally every moment of everything that you do. You're being pushed and pushed and pushed. You're already given an outline of what the entertainment industry looks like, how it works, what the institutions are, what the rules are, like what you need to do X or Y. You might develop a bit more of a foundation of technique in that regard. And then what tends to happen is alongside or instead of, people will find burlesque. Dirty Martini talked about this a lot. She was a dancer, trained dancer, for some reasons wasn't finding she was being taken seriously as a ballerina or given the same opportunities, and then she found burlesque, and thank God for that. I thank God every day. She did. Sometimes it becomes something where dancers who don't like the rigidity suddenly find a lot of freedom, but they have this kind of basis. There's a lot of set expectation. They know what regulation looks like. It's relentless regulation. Even in fine art, even if you're a self-taught artist, you're still entering the same established system. We know what the rules are. We know who runs stuff. We know like how to do X or Y or Z, right? Then on the other hand, and I'm not making this secondary like it's less than or anything, but the secondary route is that people tend to come to burlesque via like self-discovery. There tends to be either, and I'm just talking from all the like thousands and thousands of stories. So how do you get into burlesque that you ask? There tends to be some kind of defining life event, like a divorce or an illness or a bereavement of some kind, or something happens. Or, you hear the story of, well, I always grew up feeling marginalized or different, or like I wasn't good enough in some way, or or something to this extent. Often in America, kid realizes they're gay, their family disown them, these kind of stories. And burlesque is the place, as Tigger calls it, the Isle of Misfit Toys, where suddenly you find a family of other people who didn't quite fit somewhere else, have the same wounds as you, have the same, and it's a place where you can just kind of create, and you know, you can drop the mask, you can just express yourself, you know, at its purest terms, you know, express yourself however you want to express yourself, and you have this community of like-minded people in a safe space. And of course, you know, you can become incredibly passionate and dedicate yourself, and people who might not ever have been discovered before become the most phenomenal performers that we have.
Yeah.
But there are these kind of two things, and I think the problem is sometimes when it comes to any sense of regulation or standards or like tiers and expectations in terms of things, which then informs like pay or opportunity, or like it can clash then, because there can be sometimes there can be some like entitlement or dominance from the people who came up through the machine or the system. And then there can be a lot of resistance from people for whom any type of regulation is a regulation of themselves, their self-expression, their self-esteem. You know, because let's be real, for the vast majority, this is not a profitable career. It's not like the main thing that people are doing. So people are doing it mainly on like their own heart, their own passion, their own need for it, how it makes them feel. They will pour vast amounts of money into pursuing it. And I think then that kind of spills into producing, because sometimes, especially as venues close or opportunities aren't there, people will create their own shows so they can perform in their own shows, or because they want to create their own local family or like local community to enjoy this when they can't always go to that thing or this thing. There are a lot more things now than there used to be. So I think then you end up with this, you know, you end up with this resistance. You know, it gets very difficult to start talking about, well, can we be honest about the fact that, especially for our audience's sake, and this is the big thing I want to get into this year, because I think so often everything we're doing is just really kind of disregarding our audience. You know, there is a slight kind of artist to artist circle jerk kind of economy and marketing going on.
Definitely.
But you know, all of that stuff is kind of limited, and I think there are going to be different economic restraints. There are going to be defensiveness about, well, look, I'm trying to keep our art form alive, and I'm trying to do this here, and this is how much money I've got. Why am I being made to feel bad because I can't afford X or Y? Shall I just stop? Shall burlesque just die? And there are people who are starting to say, like, even Queen Kwan and I were talking about this in a recent profile, where, as frightening as it sounds and counterintuitive as it sounds, given where we're at with venues closing and this happening, you know, is that actually it wouldn't be the worst thing to retract. Slightly, that there is a saturation. It wouldn't be the end of the world if, you know, there were kind of open and honest conversations about tiers and expectations and sustainable things. And maybe that would mean that some things are going to drop off. Some things are going to cease to exist. Some people, I mean, I think people have been forced into it now anyway. Like, gosh, I think I need to have another line up something else here, or I need to go and spend more time on that thing that earns me more money right now, because we're all in real trouble, right? I think there's this fear, especially with, like, you know, the Beehive Museum closing, all these kind of things, is that we're disappearing. And if we don't maintain all of the things that we are doing, not only will burlesque itself disappear and cease to exist, but I, as a person with my self-worth and my passion and my journey and my everything, will cease to exist. And all I can say is, after, you know, hanging around here a long time, it's yet to happen. It's yet to happen. You know, a lot of these kind of like subculture art forms, especially the kind of DIY self-sustained kind of, you know, Wild West art forms, you know, we do like retract and resurge and retract and resurge. And I think it's better to, like, it's easy for me to say it because I've kind of had to remain adaptable and keep my finger on the button, but I think it's important to take that kind of broader view on things and be willing to adapt. I think, like I said, I think we either like adapt and include and, you know, and learn from other art forms that we may feel are getting more traction or visibility than us, and be open to kind of learning from that and looking at different ways to do it without worrying about compromising some sort of like artistic integrity in the process. And also just in general expand our form of reference. Like we say, like, it's at times like this when things do get incredibly amalgamous. It's the downside of social media sometimes, is that we spend more time, like, you know, back in the day, it was suddenly this magical new way that we could all stay in touch. Other than that one time a year we all saw each other, compare notes, see what everyone's doing. It was this great thing. Whereas now a lot of it comes down to like comparison all the time, or shortcuts. You know, like, oh, okay, well, that person looks successful and they're doing that in that kind of costume with that kind of music and stuff. So I'll just kind of try and do that, which is the death of, you know, creativity in itself. We're in a kind of a scrabble at the moment for what traction actually is, when the actual typical institutional traction one looks for, the measurements by which you would measure success in entertainment, profit, and you know, sustainability and stuff aren't there. So you know, we're all kind of clutching at different things. Yeah, regulation is what we need, but a different kind of regulation will be progressive.
Yeah, the world's on fire. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a lot, but I think, yeah, we need regulation, but I think it's a different kind of regulation. Before we then look at contained, more sort of, you know, local types of regulation and you know, idea sharing, while the world as a whole gets through this time that we're in.
Clearly Aya's cat agrees with her.
Roma has ancient wisdom.
The pendulum always swings back in the end. She's saying the pendulum will swing back.
She's got such an old witchy lady meow, like
she does. It's gorgeous. She's like my older girl. She's really fluffy and cranky.
Yeah. I'm like, she's old enough to just like, she does what she wants. We don't argue.
Yeah. Does she march you to bed? She will come in and tell us when it's time. She's like, I'm done. Get in bed now.
Yeah.
I don't care. Why are you still out here? Yeah, she rules the place.
Yeah, that's why she's miffed right now. Yeah. Not that I think that anyone actually listening to this doesn't follow you, but where can people follow you if they don't already?
The main place that I hang out, communicate, circulate a lot of content, other than the website 21stcenturyburlesque.com, is via Instagram. Instagram is really where everything is concentrated, where everything's happening. It's kind of the best place to tune in with us. The magazine, for anyone who's not clear, is basically just me. The person you're talking to or seeing on there is just me, a human being person. And that's where I'm kind of running everything. Another thing that I've started doing, because it has kind of diversified our audience a little bit, which is great, is that 21st Century Burlesque is now on Substack. I kind of just do some curated select things on there, but I'm also about to launch a kind of special extra tier, an editor's desk tier, where I'm going to launch it next month, where we'll be able to get in a bit more, you know, take a deeper dive into some of these things. There's going to be a couple of judging guides, like in-depth judging guides coming out, re-selection and re-competition judging, some of the stuff we touched on. There's going to be like deep diving back into archives, some of the rare stuff, footage and film stuff, like and images and just context and things that you know, I haven't had an opportunity to put out kind of before on the website. So if you want to get really hardcore and you want to kind of benefit from some more focused insight, coaching, guidance, and all that kind of thing, that's going to be the place to be. If you are on Substack, even casually lurking around on there, if you just search for 21st Century Burlesque, then you will find it. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up on there, but Instagram is a great place to start. It just takes you to everywhere you need to be.
Amazing. I'll definitely be signing up for that because it sounds great, like the Substack. I've been on Substack once or twice and it seems pretty cool, so I do need to like hang about on it more.
Yeah, I think it's all right, and you can kind of just do what you want with it. You could just literally sign up to kind of hang out and follow one person, and then you know, there are more burlesquers getting on there now. There are more burlesque people doing writing and stuff on there, which is great, but it seems like a nice place to cultivate a little kind of extra community where I can be a bit more personable and accessible, and you know, and teach and instruct. Again, economy, times are tough. It's a nice way for me to be able to impart some stuff that otherwise people wouldn't necessarily have like access to with me. So you know, and just hitting on some of these topics in a bit more depth Yeah, bit of extra tea, bit of extra context, really rare old stuff that I don't, show everyone, digging into all my archives. And yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a nice space.
Amazing.
Cool.
Everyone should sign up to that. We, Burlesque Unlaced, have a Patreon. It's completely free. We just have chats on there sometimes. We ask you what topics you want us to cover. I will probably post some bloopers, mostly Aya completely fucking up one of our intros, which is hilarious. And a few other bits and pieces. Also, Aya has Clandestine Cabaret. They have got shows multiple times throughout the year,
Yes,
banging headliners as always.
we do try.
I've had a sneak peek at what's coming up at the rest of the year, and it's very good. So do get your tickets for that.
Hmm.
Apart from that, thank you so much, Holly. This
Yeah,
has
thank you
been
so much.
so insightful, so useful. I know
So
everyone
long.
wants,
Sorry.
We love
Such
it.
a good time.
It's
Oh my
great.
God.
mate,
I'm
we could
sorry.
be here for another hour. I'm just super aware that it is quite late, so I
Yeah,
was like, better wrap up.
we must release you.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
pleasure.
thank you. Yeah. If you want to say something, Raya, sorry.
I was just gonna say, yeah, thank you so much. It's been great, and also to anyone watching, if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, if you have any other guests you want to suggest, or yeah, anything like that, you can hit us up on Instagram as well. I'll probably put up a little story question box. Um,
Amazing. Yeah, they go
yeah,
up every now and then, don't they?
yeah,
Um,
sporadically.
amazing. Well, that's us. Thank you so much. And to everyone listening, we will catch you next time.